So you're welcome to this tutorial session, and our focus for today will be on how we can use quadratic formula to solve a quadratic equation problem. How we can use the general formula to solve a quadratic equation problem. So this is an equation of the form. A quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So this is the form of a quadratic equation. This is the form. But the general formula now used in solving quadratic equation. Remember, when you're asked to solve a quadratic equation, you are particularly asked to find the value of x. You're asked to find the value of x. So the general formula now that can be used in finding the value of x is x is equal to minus b plus or minus square root of d divided by 2a. You need to memorize and master this formula. When you know this formula, it will be very easy for you to solve any quadratic problem using the general formula. So let's talk more regarding the formula. So this is the general form, and this is the general formula. X is equal to minus b plus or minus square root of d over 2a. So the question here is, what is a all about in this formula? Because x is what we are interested in finding, so that is why the general formula says x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of d over 2a. So what is a? A is your coefficient of x squared. Remember, this is the form of the quadratic equation. This is the form. So a is the coefficient of x squared. Recall that if I said 5x squared, the coefficient of x squared is 5. If I said 10x squared, the coefficient of x squared is 10. So a here is basically the coefficient of x squared. That is a. Then what about b? B is the coefficient of x. B is the coefficient of x. Remember, in the general form or in the quadratic form, we have two x there. One is x squared, the other one is x only. So a is the coefficient of x squared, and then b is the coefficient of x. So if I have, for instance, if I have 2x, so the coefficient of x is 2. If I have 3x, the coefficient of x is 3. So a stands for the coefficient of x squared, whereas b stands for coefficient of x. So coefficient is basically that particular value that is multiplying a variable. So the coefficient of x squared is a, and then the coefficient of x is b. Then c is a constant. What do you mean by a constant? A constant is a number that is not attached with a variable. It's a number that is not multiplied with a variable. For instance, if I have 5, if I have only 5, so 5 is a constant. If I have only 7, 7 is a constant. So we are trying to explain what this variable stands for in a quadratic equation. So we have explained a, and then we have explained b. Then what about d? D is called discriminant. D is called the discriminant. Discriminant. That is discriminant. So D is your discriminant and it is calculated as D is equal to B square minus 4AC. So meaning that wherever you see D, you can write it with B square minus 4AC. So this equation, the general form can still be written as, can also be written as x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of d. So instead of writing d, I can write b squared minus 4ac. That is 4 times a times c divided by 2a. So this is the general form of calculating a quadratic equation. So if you master this formula, it becomes very easy, very simple for you to solve any quadratic equation problem. So let's take an example on how we can make use of this formula to solve for x in a given quadratic problem. So supposing that you are given 2x squared minus 3x minus 1 is equal to 0. You are asked to solve for x. And like I said, there are different methods of solving a quadratic equation problem. So if you want to solve it by factorization, you know that you have to multiply the constant with the coefficient of x squared and also look at the common factors, all that. So if you want to solve by factorization, then assuming that you don't want to solve by factorization, you want to use another method of solving, then you can make use of the general form, which is this formula: x squared is equal to, sorry, not x squared, x is equal to minus b plus or minus square root of d, which is b square minus 4ac over 2a. So you want to solve for x. So the solution is very simple. So what would be your a? Remember, your a is the coefficient of x squared. Your a is the coefficient of x squared. This is the form x squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. This is the form, quadratic form. So your a is the coefficient of x squared, meaning that a is 2. A is equal to 2. Then your b is the coefficient of x, meaning that your b is 3. So b is 3, but in this case it will be minus 3 because from this equation we have x squared minus 3x, meaning that your b is minus 3. Then your c is your constant, which is 1, and that is also minus 1. That is from the equation. You have to take note of the sign, very important. So that means it is minus 1. So now we substitute it into this formula and get the value of x. We now substitute it into this formula. So by substituting it, we will have x will be equal to minus b, which is 3. We have minus 3. Take note of the sign of the formula and the sign of the value you're imputing. Then plus or minus the square root of b squared, that is minus 3 squared, minus 4ac, that is 4 times your a is minus 1, and then your a is 2, and then your c is minus 1. 4 times 2 times minus 1. Then all divided by 2 times 2, because it is 2 times a, so which is the same thing as 2 times 2. So you now simplify it further. So we have minus 3 times minus, which will give you plus 3, plus or minus the square root of, so b squared, that is minus 3 squared, will give you minus 3 times minus 3 will give you 9, then minus 4 times 2 times minus 1, 4 times 2 minus 4 times 2 will give you minus 8, and minus 8 times minus 1 will give you plus 8. So meaning that this one will be plus 8. You have to take note of the sign. Taking note of the sign is key. Plus 8, and then divided by 2 times 2, plus 8 divided by 2 times 2, divided by 2 times 2, which is 4. So you now proceed. Your next step will now be x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of, so 9 plus 8 will give you 17, all divided by 4. So you can see how fast this is. You're almost done. So you now take the square root of 17, and then you simplify it further. The square root of 17 will be, so the square root of 17 is 4.123. So this will be 3 plus or minus square root of 17, which is 4.12 divided by 4. So your answer now will be x is equal to 3 plus, because we have plus or minus, so this time around you now take plus 4.12 divided by 4, or x will be equal to 3 minus, the first section we take plus, and then now we are taking 3 minus 4.12 divided by 4. So you now simplify it and get your final answer. So whatever you get from here will be your final answer. So that is how you solve using completing the square using formula method. First you have to know your formula, and then know how to substitute the values. So like I said, the formula is x equal to minus b, that is first, minus b, then you have plus or minus, telling you that your answer will be in two forms. One will go for minus, one will go for plus. Then the square root of d over 2a. So, and you know that d is the same thing as d is equal to b squared minus 4ac. So you have to put this at the back of your mind, because sometimes you may be asked a question to find the discriminant only. So if you're asked to find a discriminant, that means you're asked to use this formula alone and solve for the discriminant. But if you're asked to solve for x, then you're going to impute the value of discriminant into the square root, then you substitute whatever value you have. So that's how you solve using formula method. But let's take another example for more clarity. So supposing that you have this value x squared plus 30 plus 30 x plus 25. So let's say that we are asked to solve for x. So we are going to solve for x using this formula: x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of d, which is the same thing as b square minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And now what is our a? So our a is the coefficient of x square. Here the coefficient of x square is 9. So a is equal to 9. And your b is the coefficient of x, meaning that b is equal to 30. And then your c is the constant, meaning that c is equal to 25. We now substitute them into the formula. Substitute the value into the formula. So this will give you x is equal to minus b is minus 30 plus or minus square root of b square, which is 30 squared, minus 4 times a is 9 times c is 25, all of them divided by 2 times 9, that is 2 times a. So from here now you have x will be equal to minus 30 plus or minus the square root of 30 square. 30 square is the same thing as 30 times 30, and that will give you 900. Then minus 4 times 9 times 25, 4 times 9 times 25 will also give you 900. 4 times 9 times 25 will also give you 900. So this is minus 900, then all of them divided by 18. So from here now you keep on solving. You have x will be equal to minus 30 plus or minus the square root of 0 divided by 18, divided by 18. Divided by 18. So the square root of 0, is still 0. So you'll be having x will be equal to, so minus 30 plus 0 divided by 18, or x will be minus 30 minus 0 divided by 18. So I'm trying to use one of these, each of them, one on separate side, plus on separate side, then minus also on separate side. So from here you now simplify it to be minus 30 divided by 18 or minus 30 divided by 18. So you now get your answer by the time you divide it. So that is very. So you can see that our discriminant is 0. What do I mean? Our discriminant is 0. This is the original question given, and these are the values. Here are the values. Here are the values given. So, for example, you are asked to calculate the discriminant. The discriminant is d equal to b squared minus 4ac. If you are asked to calculate only the discriminant, so it will now be d equal to b squared is 30 squared minus 4 times 9 times 25. So d will be equal to 30 squared is 900 minus 900, because 4 times 9 times 25 is 900. So your discriminant d is equal to 0. So sometimes you might only be asked to calculate the discriminant. So that is why it is important for you to know the formula used in calculating the discriminant. So in this case, our discriminant is 0, and this is our final answer. We have similar answers: minus 30 divided by 18, and then we also have minus 30 divided by 18. So with this, I believe we have come to the end of this particular tutorial session, and I believe you have learned a lot from it. So thank you for joining, thank you for coming, thank you for sparing your time for me. Do have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.